What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining the Ven Vamos podcast. We are here with the one and only Rosie Cordero-Stutz. Oh my God, Sheriff, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You
This
know,
is great.
How we met was a very interesting, very political kind of environment, but you don't really strike me as like a super political person.
No, I have to say that politics was something that was really never on my radar at all. I'd never run for anything, any political position before, and I had no plans on doing that until I decided to run for sheriff.
And you were able to accomplish such an incredible feat. 60 years Miami-Dade hasn't had a sheriff.
That is correct.
Something like that.
No, yeah.
And you are the first woman sheriff in the state of Florida. Hispanic woman in the state of Florida.
That is correct.
The caveat right
Yes,
there.
yeah.
How does that feel? You must be very proud.
I am very proud. I am. And I'm going to tell you that I didn't even know I had made that accomplishment until after I achieved it.
Yeah.
So that was a wow moment, right? Like when someone told me that, I was like what? Can
Yeah.
you say that again? So it was pretty cool.
So when I think of police officers, law enforcement, I typically think of men. So how was your experience as a woman in law enforcement?
Well, and you're right. I think nationally, women are maybe somewhere about 10 to 15% of all law enforcement. So we are definitely a minority in the profession. And I think that's an organic thing. I really do. I think law enforcement overall is a very difficult job when it comes to the demands of the hours. And I think that a lot of women prefer, they have other wants in their
Right, of
lives.
course.
And I don't ever want to take that away from any woman. I think it's so important for women to decide what they want to do. I'm a mom.
Right.
I'm a mom as well. I'm a wife as well. So I love that job that I have as a mom and a wife. I'm blessed. My husband is a retired law enforcement officer himself. We met on the job.
Nice.
So he understands that part of
demand.
me. Exactly. So for me, that's how we were able to make it work. But along those lines, when I started on the job, I had plenty of moments where being a woman was, questioned, where I was
I can only
challenged
imagine,
because of it.
like the locker room
Yeah.
talk, like people
Yeah.
like almost like undermining your capacity.
Of course.
Or you having to do more to prove the
course.
same worth. I can totally see that because that happens in all work environments.
It does. But for me, this is how I see things. You can take it. I always, and I think I saw it happen. I think you could take it one of two ways, right? I could either be mad about it all the time, defensive, fighting, and just constantly trying to show, oh, they said that, I'm going to fight about it, or I'm going to stand up.
against
I'm
the
gonna
stream,
go,
or-
right. Or I'm just going to do me. And that's what I did. I'm just going to do my job. I'm going to do the very best job that I can do, and I'm just not going to pay any attention to that, because I do believe that there's a price that you pay when you're constantly listening to other voices in your head.
It
That
changes
weighs on
your-
you.
yeah.
Yes, it weighs on you. And while you're listening to that and carrying that, guess what? That other person, they don't care. They don't know that
It's just haters.
It's in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I handled it.
So that's great. You bring me to I like to talk a lot about mindset, and most people have never met an elected official or a politician, and I feel like that's the problem in like our participation, right? Like if your dad was the mayor, you'd probably vote. You'd probably take all your friends and be like, "Hey, vote for my dad." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this mindset of yours seems very positive. Was it always like that? How did it develop? I know you were born in the Dominican Republic, so you must have had a lot of varying lifestyles and opinions that brought you to this moment.
So, yeah, I didn't grow up like in an easy life, like not at all. We're very poor. So it's my mom raising me and my sister, the three of us, and my parents divorced when I was pretty young. And I mean, I'm very blessed. My dad is very much a part of my life, and he remarried, and I have a brother and a sister from that marriage, and we're 4 siblings. We're very close. But so I ended up with like 2 households. Well, with that said, my mom struggled. She had to work two jobs, and sometimes up to 3 jobs. And she did that in order to give us everything that she could and what she didn't have.
Yeah.
And so it was that struggle, I think, that taught me that, you have a choice in life. You have to work hard for the things that you want. Nothing is given to you and everything is earned. So a mentality of, I should get or should be given, that didn't exist in my house.
Right. And was that instilled to you by your parents, or do you think it was a result of the experiences you lived where you kind of got that belief system?
I think both. You know, my dad is also a really hardworking man, you know, and I saw it in that house as well, you know. Both him and my stepmom worked 18, 20-hour days, you know. They had a small business, and so I think I saw it, and I think they demanded it of us as the children as well. We were like, you know, go to school was our job, and do well at school, and that's what was expected.
Now, you grew up in New York.
I did.
But you don't have an accent. Like I don't hear your accent. So
no,
like
it comes out. It comes out when I'm like around my New York friends, and when I'm with the family. And I think over the years, you know, which I think it's the same probably for you when you're here in this
Miami
environment.
goes crazy.
Yeah, so I think it just depends your environment. But you can catch me, and every now and then a word or two will come out. You'll hear it. Yeah.
Okay, so growing up in New York, do you think it's similar to Miami, or do you think that had you grown up in Miami, you would have like a different like personality, or would you have a different identity?
I do think that growing up in New York was very different than growing up in Miami. So growing up in New York City, the diversity was very different than the diversity here in Miami. And in New York, so in New York, like, okay, so it was a lot more apartment living. That's how we lived, not houses.
Yeah,
right?
Buildings versus like single family homes or multifamily.
So like in our building, in our floor, like literally it was like we had Koreans, we had Indian, we had a Jewish family, we had like it was like it was the world.
Right on top of each other.
Exactly, it was like the world, the United Nations. But everybody spoke English. So like my mom, who didn't speak English, was really had to struggle for the language. And like she went to night school on Wednesday. Like I remember being a kid with my sister, we would sit in the back of the high school in a class where my mom was taking night classes, like to learn English, to try to, you know, better herself, to give us more. And that's different here. You come to Miami,
you don't need English.
You don't need English.
And not only that, there is diversity, but it's like Hispanic diversity. Like, so it's like, it's the Colombian and the Venezuelan, but we all eat the same food, and we all kind of have the same cultural values.
Okay, so you eat frijoles and I eat habichuelas, but it's all beans. So,
Right. At the end of the day, you just make it differently.
Yes, exactly. So it was definitely different in that aspect. And so for me, it was a different environment growing up. And I mean, I think it was a blessing for me. I loved growing up in New York. I really did. I loved that. But then when I hit my high school years, my dad moved to Miami Beach. So I started spending every summer here.
Right.
And that's how South Florida,
and you obviously preferred it here,
became my second home. And then when I graduate college, like, you know, years later, I'm like, okay, I'm moving to South Florida. And here I am.
Perfect. When you were young, was there a moment or a series of events that you could point to that says, hey, this was like the deciding factor in my life? And not so much like, okay, I wanna be in law enforcement, but like, this is where you can say, this is where a change happened. Let me see if I can ask that better. Like, is there a moment in your life where after that happening, you were like, okay, I'm different now. Like I can't go back. You know, whether that could be a professional one, that could be a personal one. Like, was it an instant, or was like it a series of events that built up to something?
I will say this. I always knew I wanted to be a police officer. Like, I have very strong memories, even when I was young, of saying that I wanted to be a cop. I wanted to be a police officer. Now, where did that come from? I remember always helping my mom, because my mom, you know, she was an immigrant and we struggled, you know, like I remember like my mom's best friend coming to our apartment, like with a mail. She got a letter and she couldn't read it.
Right. And she's just like overwhelmed, and she's like,
exactly. And so that feeling of helping someone became something that made me feel good, that made me feel it filled my purpose.
Yeah.
We had good police officers in our neighborhood. In Washington Heights, this was before the musical, okay? Just to get that out there.
Yeah.
But it really was a tough neighborhood, and we had crime. And yes, search warrants got served in our neighborhood where the whole SWAT team came in and busted down the door. That happened, and I grew up in that. So I knew, but I also knew that there was an officer that if you needed help, he was there, and you could go to him.
It'd be a resource.
And he was going to help you.
Yeah.
And so for me, that I don't know, I made that connection. That was a connection that I made. I was an avid reader growing up. I lost myself in books, in two worlds that were not the world I lived in.
Right. So it would kind of be like an escape from what you were seeing in real life.
Correct. But it also opened my eyes to other worlds that I didn't know existed.
Right.
And so for some people, they're like, oh, I'm getting lost in a world that I don't know about. But it really was opening my eyes to a world that existed outside of my own. And I think that was important for me because it really, my world, I had no limits. I didn't, no one could tell me like, oh, you're never gonna, like, people could say like, oh, you can't do that. That's not for you. And I'd be like, of course
I can do anything.
I can do anything.
Yeah.
And my mom encouraged that. My mom was always like, don't let anybody ever tell you.
You can do whatever you want.
What you can't do. You can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And when your mom tells you, you can.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
I share that sentiment with you because my parents, we came from Cuba. My mom actually won the Loto Visa. So very lucky, very, very lucky. And growing up, she would always tell me, like, you're Superman. You can do whatever you want. Like, I was into superheroes a lot, so she's like, tú eres Iron Man, tú eres esto, tú eres lo otro. And they would say it so much that I believed them. Yeah. And I was like, okay,
yeah,
I am.
Yes.
And that's why we got to where we got to, so.
Words are powerful.
Yeah.
Words are powerful, and I do believe that it is important to give your children that faith in themselves, so that they can see a future of endless possibilities.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you that fast forward years later, you talked a little bit about my pride in being the first Latina woman in this role. That is the pride of knowing that there's a little girl somewhere seeing me in this role.
Oh yeah. And what would you say to them if there was just a room full of young Hispanic ladies here, young children? What would you want to convey to them? Just
you can do whatever you want. Don't let anybody tell you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's always going to be naysayers in the room, and truly for me, I think the majority of people who tell you can't, it's because of their own fear.
It's a reflection of themselves.
Yes.
Their insecurities.
Their fears, insecurities. Let them, that's their problem. That's their weight.
Yeah.
No, not yours. It doesn't have to be yours unless you let it be yours.
Right. Porque todo está en tu mente.
Yeah.
Would you say that your cup half full, cup half empty? Like
half full.
Half full for sure?
Yeah, for sure.
But have you ever been a little cynical, a little like?
Oh, well, I'm not like over the top. I have my moments like everybody else, and I think I have my days. There are days that are better than others, but I just try. I think that we all have a choice in life, right? As to how we address ourselves and how we address
how you view yourself,
and how you address challenges, right? Because all of us have challenges. That's life.
Yes.
Life is a series of challenges. So how you address them, how you attack them, it's up to you. So for me, I choose to address them in a positive manner because I think that if they're coming anyway, I could either be positive about it or I could be negative about it.
Like what's happening.
Correct.
Like so you can't be like, oh my God, like what?
Right.
It's
here. I can't believe it's happening to me. Of course, it's coming. That's just life. It's gonna happen.
So you have conversations with the press. You have conversations with constituents. You have conversations with a wide variety of people. But how do you have conversations with yourself, if you have any?
Have them all the time.
Yeah.
I ask myself if I'm, honestly, the biggest question I think I ask myself is why why am I doing this? Like whatever it is that I'm doing,
Yeah.
like what is my goal? Like what is the motivation? Am I doing this? What is the reason for doing this? Was it in the best
And am I working towards it?
reason? Yeah, what is the reason for this? Is it in the best interest of whatever it is, the county, the department, the troops, my family, you know,
Yeah.
if it's a family question. Because I think that it's too easy. We're human. We're human. And human beings are made to take care of themselves first.
In that self-interest.
Correct. But I've been entrusted in protecting this county and the safety of this county. And that means that I have to put the best interest of this county first. And so I always have to slow down
Yeah.
and make sure that that is always at the top, that leads in my decision making.
Have you ever suffered from analysis paralysis? Like, yeah. I'm going to ask you some questions of like, for example, we have a very diverse community. Mm-hmm. And I imagine policing a range of cultures, expectations, and norms changes from community to community. So how do you deal with that? Also, let's say there's a decision that is right, but in doing so could escalate community tensions. So it's kind of like politics where like we operate in a zero-sum game environment. Like in order for you to win, somebody has to lose. And that's a tough choice. Mm-hmm. So what is your decision-making process? Or how do you deal with hard choices?
So I guess the short answer is I believe you have to make a decision. And you're absolutely right. You're never going to make 100% of the people happy. Somebody is going to be unhappy with decisions that you make. So for me, I make decisions that I believe are right. And even if in the process, there are people who are not going to be happy with the decisions that I've made. But I do believe that at the end, if you make decisions in the best interest of what your goals are, and I say that because sometimes the best interests are in the good of the organization. Sometimes it's in the best interest of the community. Sometimes it's in the best interest in the campaign it was of the actual campaign, right?
Right.
So you have to know what
differentiate.
Right. You have to be able to know what your mission is. I don't believe that I suffer from paralysis in decision making. I would argue that I will make a decision. And I don't know if this is the right thing to say, but I'll say it. Even if I make a wrong decision,
you're going to stand by it.
I'm going to stand by it.
Yep.
Because I can explain to you why I made that decision.
Right, the rationale behind it.
Correct. Because I'm someone who I'll process and I will say to myself, this is why I'm going to make it, A, B, C, and D. And yes, I understand that I could have made another decision. But I made it for this reason. I weigh those two options out, and this is why I'm going down this road. So now let's go.
And I think that is very, very human. And I think constituents and just a lay person can reason and see themselves in that, because I'll be honest, I can imagine that you are under an immense amount of pressure on a daily basis. And like something could go off right now and it's like, oh, hey, then I'm okay, no, vamos. You know what I mean? So
that is the truth.
And living with that stress, you have to have methods of dealing with it. So I wanted to ask you, do you journal? Like, how do you deal with stress? How do you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like, do you confide with your husband? Like, do you like talk it out? Do you like look yourself in the mirror like, total de madre? Like how do you deal with adversity and stress?
Okay. I guess I have several ways of stuff that I like to do. I wish I could tell you I've been doing a lot of it lately. I haven't. I'm not gonna lie. It's been the first 100 days of and so it's been hectic. But what I expected and what I wanted, and I'm ready and I'm good with it, because I don't want people to think like, oh my God, it's been too much. No, it hasn't been too much. It's what I expected, and it's what needs to happen.
Yeah, but you've also been in law enforcement, so you understand the flow
100%
of work.
This is my 29th year, February 19th. It's 29 years that I've been on the job. So yes, you're 100%. I get it, and I know exactly what I need to do. It's also, this transition is unlike anything. This has never happened.
It's been 60 years.
Correct.
So it's not like, so for example, when you win as a state representative, well, there was a guy that just had your job and you could be like, hey, how do you do this?
Right.
even in president, it's like
Exactly.
they meet. I mean, they might not like each other, but they meet and they're like, hey, this is what I did. Here's where the buttons are. So you just stepped into something. You're like, nobody's done this in 60 years. I have no point of reference.
Exactly. And and additionally, I want to make it so that in the future, it continues to move in a really good path. So that means that I have to create policy and steps that I believe will lead this community for years and decades, way
Yeah.
past Rosie Cordero-Stutz as sheriff, in the right direction. So with that said, I've got a close circle of family that I'm very, very close to. So I try to stay in touch with them as much as I possibly can. Journal. I don't want to say I journal per se, but
You a
when
list maker?
I'm a list.
I felt it. I was like, she makes lists.
I do.
Yeah.
So I have journal books all over the place, and so I check off, I highlight, I check off, actionable.
There's something very satisfying about putting something on a paper and then being like, I did it.
Yes.
I liked watching the military podcasts, like the guys that are like ex-military, the sniper dudes. Well, the one that Cash Patel was on was really cool. And they were talking about the first 3 victories is wake up, make your bed, brush your teeth.
Yes, because
And
after
it's like-
that, you've set the tone for the day.
Yeah, exactly. Intentions.
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to move over a little bit to your first 100 days, talking a bit about the county and what you see as the biggest priorities in Dade. I'll tell you what I see as a resident. I will say that I've lived here my whole life, and I've lived in good neighborhoods and I've lived in bad neighborhoods. My car's been broken into, but I don't think I've ever been a victim of like a real crime. Unless we talk about taxes, but that's like a whole like other sentiment.
It's a podcast.
Yeah, it's a whole other
podcast.
topic. But I'm talking about real crime. Like I personally have never felt attacked or victimized in any way, but I do know folks that have. So it's like, it's far, but it's still kind of close. And I feel like it's impossible to eliminate crime because it's not, like this is a cultural thing. People commit crimes. Maybe, we think that people are just evil. That could be the case, but I also feel like there's a need sometimes, and I'm not trying to justify crime here, but there's obviously layers to why people make the actions that they do. So,
Those are deep, deep thoughts.
yeah, because at the end of the day, it's like, one could say that if you address the root of the issue, which could be bad, like a bad crianza, because, the best form of governance or policing is a family. Right? Like that cultural, hey, we don't do this, we don't steal, that comes from your family.
Right.
People who don't have that might not have that, you know what I'm saying? Like the likelihood of you to commit a crime is higher.
Correct.
So what would you say is your top priorities? I gave you this long-winded thing just to kind of set the tone because I feel like policing is not black and white. Okay,
so based on what you just said, the police is not the place to get your basic moral compass and that is one of the biggest problems, and that's a societal problem, not a policing problem. And if we want to look at it as if we want to look at the 100,000 mile view, that is one of the biggest problems in policing today. Is that the police get tasked with fixing societal problems, and so it becomes a no-win situation for us. Right? Because we shouldn't be tasked with fixing moral compasses or a societal direction. But sometimes we are. But with that said, I agree with you. I do believe that there is a responsibility for us to at least set the tone for what is right and what is wrong. And I do believe that we can do better in how we do policing by creating relationships. Because I believe that if you don't have that guidance, you can at least have a mentor or someone to look up to. Right? Someone to ask, because maybe you don't have it, but that doesn't mean that somewhere in your personality you don't want it, right? Because I think I've seen that. I mean, and I think everyone knows that. I think most of us see you only get one chance, especially when you're a child. I think it's the one chance where we can guide you in the right direction.
Right.
And if you don't have it, then maybe we can at least give you a fighting chance for an opportunity for it. So that's number one. But so there's so many of the wonderful programs that I want to be a part of, that we are, and we have many of, but I want to see more of them.
Yeah.
But that's more of the longer term vision, right? So, because for right now, my visions are a little bit short term, right? So,
Right.
I'm gonna tell you, I have like my immediate goals. I've got some 3-year goals. I've got some longer term
Right.
goals. But the transition is big for me right now, which is that
When you say the
establishment.
transition, you mean from the old form of
We'll call
like
it police department to office of the sheriff, the independence. So transitioning the culture.
Can you give us like the 5th grade
Yeah.
for example, like what is a sheriff?
Okay, so
Yeah.
the office of the sheriff, number one is it's a very strong independent office, right? So the sheriff is only reports to the people. Like I don't have another boss other than the voters of this county. Like no one can fire me, no one else can tell me what to do. So it's a very strong position, and I also have a very strong voice in my opinion. So, for example,
With other departments?
with the whole state,
Oh, okay.
even to the point that I will tell you that I didn't recognize how strong that position was. Like now, I get a chance to talk about what we need in this state when it comes to law and legislature to help us enforce it, right? So I
Right.
get to speak to, we need more teeth, we need more laws to address this, to address that, whatever it may be, right?
Right.
And we could talk a little bit later, maybe a little example of it. But I'm getting asked that at the state level, where I'm like, whoa,
Yeah, you're almost a lobbyist at that point.
well, I am when it
Yeah.
comes to what this county needs. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
We get to speak to that. We deserve that. Miami-Dade County is an awesome county. We're the largest county in this state. We should have a really strong voice, shouldn't we?
In the United States, the Miami-Dade is like the 4th biggest like county in like the whole United States.
Do you know that we're bigger than some states?
Yes, we're bigger than Rhode Island for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes. So that's number one. And what we're talking about is public safety. So let's talk about that.
That's like your top priority.
Of course. And without public safety, I don't care where you on the spectrum of anything political, right? You have nothing.
This isn't left or right. This isn't everybody.
This isn't everybody. This is business. This is our economic engines. These are our children. This is everything. So the office of the sheriff is extremely, extremely strong. It is a constitutional office. So we do get a right to defend the constitutional rights of our citizens. I get to defend that for everyone in Dade County. I get to speak to that. But I'll tell you that this county doesn't even understand that because we haven't had it. There are very few people who live in this county who were here when we had a sheriff.
Right. So it's like almost like cognitive dissonance. Like, well, it sounds good, but like how is it in practice?
Different? Yeah, how is it
Yeah,
different?
well, it's the same thing.
Doesn't matter. I pick up the phone, I call 911, and someone's going to come.
And someone's going to come.
And that's true. That is true. That is still the case. But I think I want to really establish that office so that people really get it. And I'll give a little example. Right now, we just had a recent situation in this county where, for example, bus patrol. I don't know if you're familiar with the bus patrol situation. So it's a program that was put in place with really good intentions. It is made to make drivers slow down around our children when they're getting off the bus, right?
School buses.
The school buses, yeah.
Okay.
And so it's set up with the cameras, and you will get a citation if you're breaking the law.
Right, because when the bus stops, you cannot go around it.
Yeah, exactly.
But you learn that in like driving class. Miami drivers is a whole other issue. That's a whole other issue.
So that's one of my priorities is actually even just traffic enforcement in Miami-Dade County because it's gotten very bad. And I will tell you that I've seen a big change after COVID for some reason. Like after the streets opened up after COVID, it was kind of like
Locura.
Yeah. And so we're doing really targeted enforcement. And if everyone could take a look at my first 100 days, it's online, www.mdsl.com. The link's there. Traffic enforcement is one of the things that I've been attacking just because of that. We need to remember that we need to be respectful of each other on the road because it is about lives. It is about saving lives.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you messed up. You broke the law. I'm not saying you and then some people were saying that they didn't break the law and some of those were actually valid. The cameras were not
installed properly or put properly.
Or capturing it properly. A series.
So the program wasn't rolled out properly. So you're like, hey, we're stopping this.
Correct.
Until we can actually do it proper.
Right. So my point is this, is the ability to protect not just the law, right? Enforce the law.
But the citizens that it's supposed to.
Correct. The rights of our citizens as well.
Mira, she just said that she took away your tickets, okay? So, Mira.
But we're going to get it right, because
Yeah,
at
yeah,
the end of the day, it is to protect the citizen, the children, right? And let's be real, everyone in Miami-Dade County knows that traffic is bad.
Yeah.
That's got to stop.
I would say if you could make a law where it's like, hey, you get a tax incentive for using your blinker, that would reduce.
You think so? You like that?
Dude, I feel like if you gave everybody a tax incentive, if we know that you use your blinker, like, here, $1,000 off your taxes, you'll be fine.
Okay. Well, we don't have local taxes, so I don't know if the federal government's going to be happy
You
about
imagine?
that.
But okay, I want to talk about a little bit about what it's like to be a police officer. I feel like there is a cultural stigma with police officers, and that's like, oh my God, F the police, all this, the music, like the experiences, people get nervous, like, so what is it like day to day being a police officer? And then because obviously they're humans too. And they think, they feel, they get depressed. And I can imagine that same stress that you feel, every officer feels in their own capacity.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
what are like the mechanisms that your office does to address like mental health within policing?
So I'm going to start with one side of the shop, right?
Yeah.
So the profession itself, the job itself, it's the best job there is. I mean, honestly, you get out, no 2 days are ever exactly the same. You get to help people in their darkest hour, literally, when you feel there's no one else where can help you, and even when you feel like your life is in danger, we're there to come and help you, and there's no better feeling. So in that sense, I'll tell you, it's the best job in the whole world. But with that comes a lot of trauma. With that comes a lot of pressure. And so there is a lot of weight that comes on our shoulders. And so, being able to recognize that there's a mental wellness piece that is attached to this profession that has to be addressed.
Yeah.
And that now we're recognizing this in the past, 5-10 years is extremely, I'm very grateful for that, because I think that, probably we waited too long to recognize it and address it. Our department back then, and now Office of the Sheriff, we've been very blessed because we've had an internal psychological services program embedded for many years, but we've been able to expand it, and I'm committed to continuing it and expanding it. Just right now, we've added an additional class that we're offering to our deputies, Boulder Crest outside training that comes in to provide support. We're encouraging our deputies to reach out in whatever way feels good for them. One of the things that we were hearing is that they were feeling a little like there was a sense of not enough privacy in reaching out for help. So we've created much more silos. Like, okay, then we're going to separate it. So when you go, it's over here. I don't want to know if you're going to get help. I want to know that you went.
No, I know what you're saying. Because I could imagine that because you work with a lot of other people, you have almost like that internal office dynamic where I could totally see. It's like, oh, you feel that way for real? And you almost get like, not bullied, but like that peer pressure to not say stuff.
Yes, correct. And I think that's human nature.
Yeah, that's just a human thing, yeah.
And in law enforcement, I think it's even elevated. I think it's even more.
Because it's very competitive too.
Correct. It's almost like, but you got to get tough. Our job is tough. We do teach you have to have a level of toughness, right? Because we can't have you go to a scene to be the strong one and then Está
flojito.
You have to be able to do your job when you get there. But then we have to have you process that after so that you can come back and be the best version of you for the community later. And there's nothing wrong with that. We can do that. It's one, I don't know, and maybe it was me on a podcast, I heard it somewhere, someone that talked about, like, in the military, right? You go, you serve, right? You can do trauma, war, whatever it is, but then you come home and it's over. But when it comes to police officers, you just go back the next day.
Yeah, you keep going, yeah, literally.
You keep going, for a 30-year career, 25, 30-year career. So we have to address it differently. And so what that can mean for us is that maybe you need a different assignment, right? So that you can rotate out of it and see something different. Or maybe it is that you're getting some different kind of support. And what do I mean by that? Now there's always a traditional therapist, but there's spiritual support that we can offer, right? There's even medical treatments now. There's treatments on and we learned it out of the military, right? So like some kind of, and I wish I knew the name of it. So like rapid eye treatments that helped to process trauma. I don't know if you've heard about that. It's pretty.
No. It's interesting though.
It's very interesting stuff. It actually, I believe it was started used out of some of the active shooter at the schools up in Connecticut. I cannot think of the ones with the children.
Sandy Hook.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so it's been around for quite some time, based out of some of that trauma, and also out of the military. But the point is this: whatever I can do to open up opportunities for our deputies to get support and training, whatever they need, I will do. Because better deputies provide better service. And I think that that's straight across the board for all law enforcement.
Yeah. What would you say is like the most important component of running a police department? Is it the recruiting? Is it the training? Or is it the policies that kind of see everything? Or is it like this like mix of all that stuff?
It's a mix. It's a balance. It's a balance. And it's not just a balance. You have to be constantly monitoring each and every one of them and adapting each and every one of those things.
Right, because at the end of the day, it's a job, and there are people that are good performers, underperformers, and you need to, si tú estás flojito, you have to like communicate, hey, like you're not doing so good, and then work your way up and put ways that they can improve.
And the needs change as well. The needs for the position, for the job, for the community, they change as well. Understanding that, 15, 20 years ago, the law enforcement officer looked very different than it looks today, because we identify that the community's needs changes, and that's a good thing, right? That means that we're growing, that we are evolving, and we absolutely should, because technology evolves, everything it changes, and we too should change. And for me, that's another big piece, is constantly affording the opportunity for our deputies to train, as well as our command staff, because I think that you should challenge yourself always. You should always, while you're growing, if you grow as a person, that gives you the opportunity to bring everybody with you as well.
When it comes to that diversity, when you're talking about your experiences in New York and living with all these different cultures, how does that translate into policing? Because I can imagine it's not the same thing going into a predominantly American neighborhood or a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood or a predominantly Creole neighborhood. So what is kind of like the strategy of addressing different communities? Is it like a one size fits all, or is it like, hey, we want our police officers to look like the community? Like how do you go address that?
Well, I think it's a combination of both of those things. I'm a big believer that our office of the sheriff will always be reflective of our community. It should always be reflective of our community. But additionally, all of our deputies need to understand that we serve our community, and so you need to understand the community that you serve. And therefore, the best way to do that is to expose yourself to the community, understand it. And so we work very hard with our leaders in our community to come to do training. We're constantly asking our community leaders to come in, and we have it at the academy level. When we first start, we have it during in-service training. We have it during holidays. If we have, like most recently, we just had the high holidays for the Jewish community pre-Passover. They came in and talked to us about what their needs are during, for the Passover, to speak to what their needs are so that they can understand what their needs are. And we just continuously do that. I think that's key. Communication is key. I'm a big communicator. If we can talk, we can understand each other. We might disagree, but we will begin to understand how we can meet somewhere in the middle.
Now, as a first-time elected official, how's it been like dealing with other politicians?
Oh, how has it been? Challenging, I think, because sometimes I didn't know what I didn't know, right? But I have to tell you that I found some really amazing elected officials that just are amazing, good people, that are doing that elected job just like I am. For,
I've always said that,
the right reasons.
And again, it goes back to like, most people don't know these folks, and I would say the majority of people that hold public office do it because they actually care. But in terms of like the sheriff's office and working with other agencies and other orgs like the state, like, is there ever moments where like the state might have a certain view of something, you have a certain view, and it's like, how do you mitigate that disagreement? Because you obviously want something done, you obviously might need the state's support, but what if they're not really on board with what you got going on?
I think you have to be honest as to what your goals are, and you have to be professional. And you have to keep your word. You know, if you disagree, you share why and be honest about it. I think ultimately people respect that. I think ultimately if I've said no and this is the reason why I'm saying no, at the end of the day, they may not like that I'm saying no, but they can respect that's the way I'm coming from.
Yeah. Man, Sheriff, this has been interesting because I'm like reflecting on my experiences with law enforcement, and I'm like, this might probably be the nicest one that I've had in a while.
That's good.
No, but you know what? I'll never forget when I got pulled over and I was speeding. I'm not even gonna lie. I sped, or I took the red or whatever. And the guy comes up to me and he's like, you know why I pulled you over? I was like, I took the red. I took the red. And then he gets a phone call. And he steps away, and then he comes back and he's like, you're lucky my wife needs me. You can go. And I was like, ah! I'm like, okay.
Thank you. See?
Yeah, okay. No, but how should people interact with law enforcement? Because the same way how you train your officers to interact with the public, I honestly don't think we've ever gotten a training on how to interact with law enforcement. Like, you know, your parents will be like, you know what I mean? Like, be respectful, don't scream, don't, you know what I mean? So, like, what is proper etiquette when it comes to these scenarios?
Same etiquette that you should have with every single person you have that you don't know.
Respeto.
Respect. You should be polite, and you should treat them like you would want anyone to treat your loved one. Right? And I said, no. Thank you, please. And obey commands. Obey commands. I tell people all the time, I go, you know, if you're at church, would you behave in this manner? Would you be? No, you wouldn't. Yeah. And in return, I would argue that it is the same thing that is expected of the law enforcement officer, right? In my case, it's deputy, or it can be a police officer of any agency. But I always argue that you always get more with honey than you get with vinegar. That's the same. That's everywhere in life, you know. But there's a place to argue that you didn't deserve a ticket.
Right.
That's in court. There's a place to argue that you feel that the officer or the deputy violated a policy, internal affairs, a complaint, or contact a supervisor. And you can do all those things in a polite, professional manner. That's it.
Yeah.
But you obey commands. You listen, and there's no reason. Some of the behavior that I see, and I would argue that it's not just in encounters with law enforcement. We are losing that in encounters with each other.
Yeah, just like everybody's very like seclusive, and it's almost like you're guilty until proven innocent, and everybody's very aggressive. I mean, look, I challenge you to pay attention to exchanges at the supermarket. Pay attention to exchanges at the supermarket. Okay. Somebody working at a supermarket doing their job, and people are just like, no, thank you, no, please, no, excuse me. It's almost like you're expected to serve me.
Exactly.
Yeah, like entitlement.
Exactly, and that's you know, again, I argue that, you know, that is the erosion of that base of the societal level that, you know.
That goes back to our culture, because I think the only way that we can fix it, and it's not a quick thing. It's not like de un día para otro, everyone's just gonna be like, oh, we're all happy.
But I'm gonna, and it's something that I call out. I think that every one of us, we should call it, like, I'm the first one to be like, and I do it to my son. Obviously, it's my son, so I could do it, but like, because it'll be like, pass me the ketchup, please. You know, right?
Yeah,
remember?
yeah.
Can you please pass me the ketchup? Yes, that's the tone. That's the voice. We have to challenge each other to be respectful people. There's no reason that we should give up that. You know, it's such an important part of the whole process.
Okay. I want to finish on how can we, both law enforcement and those that are, you know, policed, how can we build better relationships? And is it like the cafecitos with a cop? Is it like doing more of these like going to like the youth, or is it like what have you seen that works in actually like community building?
So I think that here in South Florida, like in the past years, we've been so blessed. I've seen it, and I think it's what has kept us like out of that national rhetoric. Yeah, which is a little bit of all that you just mentioned and more, right? It is cafecito with a cop, but it is also sitting down and having tough conversations when we've had tough situations occur. It is having relationships with the leaders in our community on a regular basis, talking, meeting. We have like the community relations board where we are able to sit down and speak to our leaders where like we're concerned, or when we have spring break.
Oh,
that has been
my favorite.
Right. Yeah. But
we had Commissioner Alex Fernandez on recently, and man, he had a lot to say about spring break.
I know, right?
It was a locura.
I know, right? And listen, but there are people that live here that have to live that every single year. I mean, that's hard, right? So again, we have to have tough conversations. We have to talk about it. We have to make a decision as to how we're going to address it. But when we address it, there are people who say, it hurt my business. I didn't get the same sales this year, right? You're helping on one side, you're going to hurt another. Not everyone's going to be happy. But what is the goal? What is our goal? The goal is
safety.
Somebody didn't die. Someone hasn't died in the last several years because those got so bad that people were
and people got
dying.
Shot and the crime was crazy.
Do you see? That's a perfect example of what I mean. You got to figure out what your mission is. And for us, our mission is safety. We want to make Dade County the best place for people to live. We're getting people moving here from all over this country. There's
crowded.
A reason.
It's crowded.
But it's great here. We want to continue it being great. And that means we have to continue these conversations and these relationships. And so I'm going to continue doing whatever works, little, big, in the middle.
Yeah.
But listening is key. What does our community need? And how can we make it happen at the office of the sheriff?
If instead of me sitting here, it was all of Miami-Dade County. I know I'm a big guy, but not big enough to be Miami-Dade County. What would you say to the constituents, like directly?
First of all, thank you for believing and putting your trust in me through your vote. Second is that I will work diligently and hard to do the very best job that I can to make this the best county, the safest place to live, and to honor everything I said I would do. I will also honor our deputies and our employees to make sure that they have what they need to serve this county to their very best ability.
Caso cerrado. Sheriff, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.